Welcome to Hillside Tractors. We're just looking at the Carraro combined with the Major Cyclone Mower that's been set up, reconfigured in the push configuration. So normally a tractor would hook on and drag it that way. We've set it up so you can push it. And if you read the Cyclone manual, it'll tell you it's intended for this purpose. They explain to you how to convert it. So you can push it, but we've made a few modifications for this situation. So if you're putting it behind a normal tractor, I don't think you need any modifications, but for what we're doing, we specialise in tractors and implements that work in this direction, and we possibly know a little bit more about it than other people do. So we think we've got some good ideas about this sort of thing. But we also want to talk about the product. It's quite a unique product because it's very different to a slasher. It's also very different to a mulcher. So compared to a slasher, this is a 2 metre cut. If you had a slasher with a 2 metre cut, it would be 2 metres this way, plus you've got to have 6 inches overhang of the body, front and rear. It's 150 mil, so it would be 2.3 metres long. Plus you need caster wheels on it as well, hanging out, so it would end up, I'm not sure how long they are, but about 500 mil. So it would end up about 2.8 metres long to get a 2 metre cut, which is just insane. It makes the tractor unstable. There's too much weight too far away from the tractor. This type of mower, similar to a mulcher, brings the weight closer to the tractor, makes it more stable on steep slopes, which is what we're all about. It's more manoeuvrable in tight places. There's a lot of advantages in this style of thing, but one problem they've had in the past with multiple spindle mowers like this is they're either light duty and belt drive and therefore not heavy duty enough, or if they go to a gear drive, they've got to have timed blades, so the blades don't hit each other, and therefore you've got a solid gear drive between each spindle, and you can't have a slip clutch. So the problem they've had is that if one spindle hits a rock or a stump and suddenly comes to a sudden stop, the momentum of the others, the driver line back to the tractor, you can have your slip clutch and it slips, that's no problem. But you've got the momentum of the other two, they want to keep going. And you can't have a push drive or a slip clutch in there. So therefore there's problems, isn't there? When one wants to stop and the other two want to keep going, usually something will give, something will break. Now that remains to be seen about the Cyclone, whether their gears are strong enough, and looking at their spindles, they look very heavy duty, and there's a lot of weight in the blades, so therefore hopefully the blades will swing and absorb that momentum. The blades will swing, it's a question of how much weight and momentum is retained in the spindle itself. But anyway, time will tell, but it looks a pretty decent machine to me. What I really like about their blades too, I might lift it up now and show you underneath, but it's got a very, very unique blade design and spindle design that allows the blades to gain height as they swing back. So I'll explain about how it lifts later too. But if we get underneath here with the camera, here's the blades, and you can see as they swing back, they gain height. Okay, that's very unique in a vertical axis mower or slasher. Normally they don't have that. Normally the blades swing back and just go back, but never gain any height. So it allows it to get over a rock or a stump or whatever. But they also look very solidly built, well built. They've also got the secondary set of blades up there too, the mulching blades, which help discharge the cut material to throw it back out over that rear roller, which is important when you're in thick stuff. If you turn the camera around here, Jenny, you can see the type of material that we've cut with it. We've just driven through here, and I wasn't going slow. Admittedly, we've got nice new sharp blades there, but it cuts this no problem at all. Like, you can cut a lot thicker grass than this, and it discharges it very easily. And I've had grass not this thick let's say half this height and half the thickness that I was cutting at 10k an hour, and it's still doing a very reasonable cut, you know, like very impressive cut. So yeah, anyway, it's a very impressive machine. A lot of other machines would choke up and not be able to discharge the cuttings, whereas this does that very well. It does everything very impressively, actually. It just remains to be seen how about its long-term reliability, but it looks well built to me. Hopefully, okay. I'll just sit this back down into working mode now. That's lifted up as high as it can go. I mean, if you wanted to go higher, we could modify these link arms to get a bit more height, but I think that's more than adequate for most people. Okay, now that's how it sits as we work it. You know, you can adjust the height of your front casters. By the way, we built those casters. They're not supplied by Cyclone or Field Quip in Australia, who are the distributors in Australia. They make another set of casters. But these ones we've made a lot closer to the mower. We think that's important. And we've only got this moving of these spacers here for the adjustment. They had a wind-up adjustment mechanism, which some could argue that's better, but I'm sure that's all you need. But we just want something as lightweight, as close to the tractor as possible, and heavy duty. So, you know, it's a balancing act between heavy duty and you know, being strong enough and being light enough, you know. But that's how you'd operate the machine. You know, you can play around with the skid settings there to suit your own needs. You obviously don't want them dragging on the ground all the time. As you can see there, we've got a bit of clearance there, but they're still well below the blades to offer safety. But now, the way this works on this tractor is this tractor's got a load share system, and we've also got this accumulator on here working in with this top link, which is our patented system. It's called the Trax Glide system. There's a few reasons why we call it that. It improves traction and it makes it glide along smoother. Because the mulcher with this Trax Glide system, and combined with the tractor's load share system, which normal tractors don't have. You know, when I say normal tractors, I'm talking John Deere, Kubota, those, you know, Case, Massey Ferguson, those sort of tractors that are intended for pulling implements. But when you talk about tractors like Carraro, BM, AGT, those style of tractors, I mean, there's other ones like Reform and AB that are intended for pushing an implement. It's very important that you have a load share system to take the weight off the wheels or rollers of the implement and put it back onto the back wheels of the tractor. If anyone's ever driven one of these tractors, you know, with or without it, well, with and without it, you'll understand why. But it makes a massive difference to traction and just how it performs. So without the load share, you would have, I mean, this mower I think is about 600 kilograms plus the weight of the caster wheel. So I'm not sure what they'd weigh, but anyway, let's call it 700 kilograms. And you've got all that weight sitting on the rear roller and these two front wheels. So let's say you've got 350 kilograms on the back and 350 on the front. So when it hits a bump pretty hard. You know, all the weight at the moment is on this wheel. Although this is only sitting lightly because I've got the load share on activated. But if you didn't have the load share, it'd be sitting hard on the ground. When you hit a bump, it hits it hard. You know, the wheel bearings are working hard, getting shaken and shock loads all the time. But the biggest problem is the tractor doesn't have any traction. You know, the back wheels of the tractor just don't have the weight to give it the traction. So that's what we want to achieve, is to transfer the weight from these wheels back onto here. And if it were a mulcher and it didn't have wheels out the front, all it would have was this back roller. All you need is the lower link load share system, which comes from Carraro, BM, AGT, Reform, AB. All those companies generally offer that feature. Some of them as standard, some of them as optional, and that's all you need for a mulcher. And you use your top link then to vary the angle of the mulcher to adjust your cut height. But on this type of mower, the front wheels control your cut height, and it'll follow the contours. It'll go up and down and like that, following contours. And you need the lower link load share to take the weight off the rear roller, but you also need the top link load share to take the weight off the front wheels and to keep an even balance. You know, otherwise it just picks up the back of the mower and puts all the weight onto the front. So the two work in together with each other. Basically, this top link, you've got this side of the top link is just plugged into your tank return, so it just allows it to breathe. It's not really doing anything, it's full of air. And this side has got the pressure linked down to the accumulator. You've got your gauge positioned so the operator can see it. It's important to have the right pressure set, and we've got a pilot operated check valve to charge it up to the correct pressure, and then that holds the pressure. So once you set it, you pretty much forget it. You don't have to, it's not something you're adjusting while you're working, it just stays set. The only time you do adjust it is when you pick it up for transport and you want suspension while you're traveling. So I'll explain that in a minute, but if you just want to move back a little bit, we'll show you the geometry of it when you lift it. I'll start the tractor in a minute. So if you go back so you can see like the back half of the tractor and the whole mower, and if you watch the tractor, when I lift it, normally an implement, depending on the geometry of these points here, will lift fairly level, you know, like a parallel lift. But we've got this set very high. Well, actually, often we have to modify the machine to make this high, but the way the Cyclone is, it's already very high. And you might notice we've also put this down one hole too. But as you lift it, as soon as we take the weight on the linkage, this extends out all to the end of the stroke, allowing the front to drop down. But because of the geometry of it, as you continue to lift, it pulls the front back up. So as you lift it, when you get to full height, it ends up parallel, which is kind of what you want, you know, when you pick it up. And if you're traveling at speed over bumps, you would adjust the pressure in this Trax Glide system to shorten this back up again, probably exposing about 40 or 50 mil, and that'll give you suspension while you travel. It means you can travel a lot faster, hit some bumps, and it's not knocking the gear around. It makes it safer, you know, for high speed travel on roads. But even just driving around a property, you know, through gullies or whatever, it's just kinder on the gear. So I'll just pick that up and just demonstrate that for you now. So you can bring it up all the way. If you're driving down through a gully and you wanted a bit more clearance there, you could bring it up all the way. But if you leave it at about that position with about 50 mil exposed, you've got a nice amount of suspension, you know, while you travel along. Takes all the jarring out of it. Now, what else was I going to say? So I'll just put it back down again to the work position again. Okay, so that's back in work mode. The load share pressures are both set at where you would normally work them. And just to give you an idea of the effect that it has, I'm not really very strong, but look at that. I wouldn't normally lift a 700 kilo mower in the air like that, but that just shows you it's just treading lightly on the ground. So, you know, when this wheel goes over, falls down a hole, it doesn't hit with a bang. You know, it's gentle on the whole chassis of the machine. It's not getting shaken and jarred and you know, causing fatigue cracks for years down the track. You know, your wheel bearings you'd expect to last longer, but the main thing is performance of the tractor. When you go to turn, you put it on a full lock, it'll turn a lot tighter. When you're on a slope, you know, you work the tractor on a slope like that, and without it, you'll be pointing up like that to go like in that direction. You'd be like an aeroplane in a crosswind. Whereas with it, it goes where you point it, where you want it to go. So, but anyway, that's. I think that's covered all that. What I want to explain now is because this is a multi-purpose video, so it's a bit of a product endorsement on the mower and tractor combination, but it's also to explaining to any potential customers or, you know, existing customers, if you buy this tractor and you buy this mower off someone else and you put the two together, it isn't going to work. Look, it's not going to work very well. You know, it'll cut grass for sure, but it won't turn and it won't perform like it should. You know, you've got to have the thing set up right. We followed the instructions out of the Major Cyclone manual on how to reverse all this for pushing, and that doesn't all quite make sense. We had to re-drill these bolts into the side plate. I've got a photo there that we'll go over to when you're editing. That shows it was about 40 mil backwards or forwards, I can't remember, of the original holes. And rather than just drill holes, we drilled a smaller hole and tapped it so we can screw the bolt in from behind and it just stays put. So now you can just put the nut on without having to hold the spanner on the back of it, which makes the job a little easier. But anyway, that needs doing, or at least it did on this one anyway, in order to reverse these skids, because this skid was on that side facing that way, and we've spun it around. You know, obviously when this skid was over there facing that way, the roller was on the back going back, so we've changed this plate and this plate have been reversed, and then we've made these caster wheel assemblies. Now they're just from Bearco. There's a part number B6556 for that assembly. That wheel, that's the 400 mil diameter wheel, that's from Bearco, and that frame back to there was from Bearco. We've cut and welded that plate, made up that plate to mount it onto the Cyclone. We've made that brace across there just to reinforce it, and we've made it as strong as we can. We think it's the right combination of weight and strength, and but we kept it as close back to the mower as possible. So that's one. So first of all, you've got to convert the configuration of the mower. You've got to build a set of caster wheels. I certainly don't recommend you buy the ones that Field Quip supply. Not for this application. They might be okay for going that way behind a normal tractor, but certainly don't recommend them for this application. And you've got to unbolt, or I would recommend to unbolt this mounting point here and move it down one hole, just to give you a bit more lift height. And the top link has to be a specific length. Now that's got 140 mil stroke, and hang on, I've got to remember now the lengths. It was 795 mil from centre to centre when it's fully extended. 795, so therefore it was 655 when it's retracted, and that's important. There's no pilot operated check on there because it has to work, it has to flow freely from there to the accumulator. We just drilled and tapped that body there to mount the accumulator, and that just works nicely for that valve, that gauge, to be in position where the operator can see it, because you need to operate that system at just below 50 bar. About 45 bar is the correct pressure for this mower anyway. Obviously if you've got a different size one, this is the 2 metre Cyclone, but if you've got a different size, we'll have to recalibrate what pressure to run it at. But yeah, 45 bar for that system, and the factory load share system that Carraro provide. Actually, if you want to come around this, oh, you could put your head in the gauge. We've got to see that gauge on the other side there. So from an operator's perspective, you've got to set that pressure there. Now that's about, it's only reading about 130 bar at the moment, but about 140 is probably the correct pressure to run that at. And if you just come back up here to the joystick, now when this is turned on, when you're operating it, it's very important. When the motor's running, I can raise the implement like that, and I can lower it like that. See, the orange light comes on while I'm lowering it. When I let it go, the orange light's not on anymore. Now, you could lower it back to the working position, but it's not, the load share is not necessarily working properly. For it to work properly, that orange light's got to stay on. So, see there's a button on the side here, if you come around this side of the joystick, that button there, you need to pull your dead man switch, which is, if you go back around here, that button there. Nothing works unless you pull the dead man switch, right? Pull the dead man switch, and then back around the top, you'll see, and then hit that button there, and it latches on. That's the float latch that we call it. It's a relay that latches in the float position, and that's how you must operate the load share. So when you're working it, you raise it, pull the dead man switch and pull it back to raise it, and when you want to reinstall it, you know, back into the working mode, you just hit the float latch, and there you go. And that's how the light should always be on while you're mowing. If it's not on, then the load share's not working properly. And then the other thing is, obviously, check your pressures. So 45 bar up the front, if you hand me that there, you can see it out the window there. It's, you know, we'll put a white mark on the gauge so you can see it from the cab. And then also down here, that other gauge there is 140 bar, you should read there. And you adjust that pressure by this switch here on the joystick. That switch there, now if I hit that button there, you'll actually probably hear the pressure relieving. That relieves the pressure, and when the motor's running, I just push that down like that, and that charges the pressure up. So as I was relieving pressure, I'll watch the gauge. Here I go, I'll do it again. Right, there goes the pressure down. Right? But you need to push the button down like that to charge it up while the motor's running. Okay, there you go. Now, what else was there? So I think we've explained how to set up the mulcher from an operator's point of view, how to operate it. Just recapping again about transport, just while we're in the cab. In fact, I might grab that from here while I start the tractor and just show you. I'll just start it now. And I'll just recharge that pressure. So this is the up button, so I'm hitting this button here. Then bring the pressure back up, and as I just use that pressure come back up. So about 140 bar is where it should sit when it's in float. So you see the orange lights on there. Now the load share down there, the top of the load share, the pressure is a little bit high there at the moment, and I can lower that by hitting this out like that, and that'll drop that pressure down, or that'll bring it up, right? So if I go to pick up the mower now, up she comes, see the drop link extends out, and that's fine for a short distance. But if I want to travel over any distance and I want suspension, I just bring the joystick over like this, the pressure will slowly creep up, and then the drop link will bring up like that. So I don't want to go, well I could go all the way, but then I don't have suspension, so if I let it back out a little bit, I set it so it sits in about the middle there somewhere, and I've got suspension then, and I can hook along at a pretty fair speed over some pretty nasty bumps, and it'll ride incredibly smooth. As far as endorsing the product goes, one feature about it that isn't great is that it holds a lot of material, you know, like this grass, you know, it'll fill up all in here. It is drained, it's got some drain holes there, and it's hot dip galvanised, so rust isn't a concern. But if you're concerned about you know, spreading grass seeds, you might want to keep an air compressor handy. But anyway, that's its biggest fault. As long as you're aware of it, it's a problem you can deal with. But on to the next subject of setting up this mower to suit this tractor. One thing I didn't discuss, we talked about the length of this top link. Now there's 2 pin positions there, that's the category 1 pin position, that's the category 2. We're using the category 2 even though I've got a category 1 link, but then I've just got the conversion bushes in there. But it's important for the geometry to use that pin position. And on the tractor you've got the 2 pin positions. You notice this tractor doesn't have the Carraro draft position option, and therefore it's got this fabricated steel top link, not the cast one, because the cast one has a different geometry about it. The pins are further out and that would sort of stuff things up a bit. And we're using the top pin position, so that's important. Top pin position there, the rear position there, and of course the lengths that I mentioned in the video yesterday. That's all important. If you look at the linkage arms, now we've got these levelling blocks shortened as much as possible to give us as much lift as possible, because these pins are quite high on the mower. So they're both shortened up. You'll see that there's one pinhole there that's further out than the rest. We've got the levelling block into the 2nd pin position. Then we've got another pin position there blank, and then we've got the pin in the 4th pin position there. That's the one that affects the length of the arm. So the length of the arm is critical. The pin position here is critical, because all that affects, if this arm was longer, that would stuff up the geometry for this, and also that affects the width that it goes to. A longer arm would come out wider slightly, but on the standard tractor, when you hook it up like this, you do up the sway links. So your sway links down here, you do them up as tight as you possibly can, and they won't be tight enough. So it'll rock, like if you come stand back, Jenny, right back and get the whole tractor in here, you'll rock the mower and the sway links will be loose. But see, now they're done up firm so that it moves the tractor with it, and that's the way you want. That's very important. To do that, come in close again. In fact, I'll just let that mower down on the ground now, just to explain. So you can see in here it'll be a little better. Bring your camera in here now. So those sway links there, pardon, and I'll find one on the other side maybe. In the shadow. Okay, can you see it okay there now? Actually, those lock nuts aren't even done up. They should be done up, but of course we've just been playing around with this. Haven't actually handed it over yet, but that swaling needs to be done up firm, and you run out of thread. So what we've done is we've actually cut about 5mm off the end of this tube here. It came out here a little bit further. We cut 5mm off there. Same on the other end. And these male threads, where they go inside, the next thing they would clash in the middle, and we've cut about 5mm off each one of those as well. So the whole sway link can come up shorter. Now move back with your camera, to allow this arm to come out, pull out here tighter. We've also got some spacer bushes in here, if you want washers in here, and all that's very important so you don't have any side movement. Okay. The other thing too, when you're building these front casters, they're not, if you study it, if you go back, walk back there and get down low and look at the whole machine level, if you study it very closely, you'll notice that that is not parallel with the mower. It's slightly leaning down. And we've done that on purpose. The reason for that is when the wheel's in that position going forward, the wheel, because of the angle, it actually rises up a little bit, drops the front of the blades down. And when you reverse, the wheel spins around here, it actually lifts up. And so the blades are angled like this as you're mowing forward. When you go to reverse, they slightly kick up a little bit at the front. Just makes the mower work a little bit more efficiently. You're not dragging the rear half of the blades through the already cut grass. Anyway, it's not essential, but it's advisable. The difference in the height between that position and this position is about 30mm. And it's just a matter of positioning the machine level and putting a block under here while you do it. 25 to 30mm, somewhere in that range is what we would recommend. Okay, we've had a little bit more experience with the Cyclone and the Carrara now. It performs great. We did some upgrades to the caster wheel. Just that caster mechanism that came from Bearco wasn't quite strong enough the way it was, so we fixed that up. But it works incredibly well, but one problem with this style of mower, it's called a Cyclone, and it does what the name suggests. It creates a massive storm of dust. You know, it discharges the material out the back here and it just throws it down here at, you know, with a big wind force behind it, and the dust just swirls up behind this tractor, clogging the radiator and even up into the air conditioner condenser up there. So you know, the dust is a bit of a problem. Like with the Ino Elite mulcher, it's got the rear roller, but it throws the material on the ground in front of the roller, and it's got a rubber flat, you know, so it doesn't blow the wind out the back, you know, so it's got a fully enclosed discharge, and that makes a big difference. I know that they have had a little bit of problem before with dust, but we've done some upgrades here to help this tractor cope with this extreme dust. I'll show you in a minute. And but I think what it's going to need is an extension. Instead of this rubber flap, I would suggest this steel frame here needs extending out to that point there, and then chains hanging down here, so the material can still flow. You don't want to block the flow of the material, otherwise you block the machine up, then it's like driving with your handbrake on. We want to have the metal coming down to here, maybe a little bit past there. I'd suggest we build it out of bisalloy, something substantial along the rear deck of it. It's up high, so it's not likely to get struck by anything. It'll need reinforcing, you know, like back to here, you know, a brace in here to give it strength, but then chains hanging down to the ground, and probably chains hanging down the side as well to fully block that airflow, so the blades cavitate with the, you know, they're not pumping air like they are now. They pump a lot of air out of there as it is, and I believe that, combined with the upgrades we've done here, will make a big difference. So I just want to show you what we've done. So we've got this extra cooling fan on the front. So there's your engine radiator, there's your hydrostatic cooler. They also did have a hydraulic cooler, which we know for a fact they don't need. So we've removed the hydraulic cooler, it's only a small one, and it's for a separate system to the hydrostatic, and placed this electric fan. So that fan is pushing air through, helping the engine-driven fan. When the engine-driven fan reverses the pitch to blow backwards, this also reverses. So you've got double the effect both ways. Another thing we found though, although they've gone to a lot of trouble to seal this area, you know, got nice rubber seals around here, we had already sealed up around here where we changed the air intake. We've put extra sealing around the bonnet there. Very well sealed, but we noticed it had a big air intake down the bottom here, and also underneath the radiator, coming up between the bottom of the radiator and this bolster here. So we've blocked all that area up there now, so it's got a lot cleaner air getting to the radiator. We just weren't aware of that opening before, but now we've sealed that off. We fitted this fan that works with the ordinary fan and also works in reverse when the clean fix operates. The other thing we've done though, because when this is closed, oh by the way, while we're here, there's the relays and the fuse or circuit breaker actually that operate this fan, this cooling fan. Okay, so but the other thing that we've done is with this closed, it's more, this mesh blocks up more than the radiator because it's so well sealed. This is what blocks up, and in extremely dirty conditions, you know, it was blocking up quicker than the cycle time because the timer on it was set. The factory timer is set to cycle every about 14 minutes, and we find it would lock up a lot quicker than that. So now we've added an extra timer. If you come around here, I'll show you. Look in the cab here. So there's your fan, there's the switch to turn the clean fix on. Can you see that?
Yep.
Let's say that's where you normally leave it. Clean fix on, clean fix off. So if we, and then this switch here was for the four-wheel drive, to disengage four-wheel drive. Now you're never ever going to want that, so we've just disconnected that. It's just always in four-wheel drive now, which is where you want it anyway. But we've used that switch to operate. You can choose which timer you're running off. Okay, it did have a safety latch on that button. See that one there's got a safety latch, so you can't bump it on, but we've ground the safety latch off, so now you can just flick it on or off. Alright, but when it's up that way, it's on the 4-minute cycle for extremely dusty conditions, and when it's down that way, it's on the standard 14-minute cycle for lighter dust conditions. Okay, so normally you'll leave it there. Always leave your clean fix fan on, I would suggest, and when it's extremely dusty, flick it up into the 4-minute one. Okay. With this, all this reversing fan, it's going to keep this pretty clean, but you'll still get fine dust build up, inside the cores after a while. I mean, the reversing pitch of the fan works well, but it doesn't concentrate reversed air on little spots, so you're still going to get a build up, and when your temperature starts to rise, you're just going to have to, obviously let it idle for a while, let it cool down, pull up, get your air compressor and get in, blow it around between the cores down there, flick it in around here and get in from behind the engine driven fan, so that you're blowing the air back the other way. Get your nozzle in here as best you can between the blades and just flick it around. It's best to flick the nozzle, because then you've got that sudden change in velocity of the air, which will dislodge clumps of dust. But the other thing is, you're going to have to, if your air conditioner isn't working, with this extreme dust created by that mower, it was even blocking up this condenser up here, and you've got two little hand thumb screws in here to unscrew, and that hinges up, and then you can get your air compressor on top there and blow all the dust out of the condenser. The dust lands on on this glass panel of the roof, and then you can direct it down from there. But when your air conditioner's not working, that's what it'll be. You can look in there and it might look clean, but it gets the dust build up inside the core, and that's what you need to do. So just want to remind you that although it's well sealed and it's got all this good reversing system, you still need to, in extreme conditions, which you're going to have with that mower especially, you're going to still have to go back to the air compressor. Okay, we're just going to go for a drive and pick the Cyclone up into transport position and go for a drive and show you how the suspension works. So just use the joystick here and raise it like this to fully raise it. And as we do that, you see the top link extended. We'll just do that again. So I'll let it back down to the ground. There's work position. Now I'll raise it. As I raise it, the top link extends out. Once now the mower's sitting parallel. And now I'm going to pull the joystick over, which is what brings the pressure up. You can see that pressure gauge there coming up, and the top link is coming up, and I'll stop it about there. We'll just let it down a little bit. And that should give us a nice bit of suspension. We'll go for a drive, see if we can run some bumps. We'll get a little bit of speed up. I don't know how well it shows up in the video, but that suspension is working a bit there. Might see it better up here. I'll get a little more speed up. So there you go. That's how the suspension works. Suspension mode works.